Let's get the view now of energy expert Hilton Trollip, who's joining us here on News at Prime. Welcome to the program. So always good to have your time. Do we have an honest and realistic assessment of the weeks and months ahead as far as the forecast from Eskom today?
I think that it's a fairly accurate assessment for the next 3 months. This has been happening all along. Eskom, you can say fairly accurately what will happen for the next 3 months, but they have also told us that it can go, in this accurate assessment, that it's very likely or likely to go as far as 8, and that it could go further. We also know that last winter, with the labour unrest, we went from no load shedding to stage 6 very carefully. And I read the Eskom, I didn't watch the presentation today but on TV, but I read the presentation, the PowerPoint that they gave. If you look at what they say is there's going to be really bad load shedding, but what's missing from the presentation, or what isn't in it, because this hasn't happened, is no actions to put substantial additional capacity onto the grid have been taken this year. And we continue to live in this world, which I think is an incorrect assessment, where the energy availability factor is going to be improved. And we keep on being told that it can be improved and that it will be improved. The thing is, we have 81 big machines. They're old, most of them, except the 12 in Kusile and Madupi are new, but poorly constructed and badly designed, owing to corruption, one of the main causes. So all of these machines, when we're on stage 6 load shedding, it means that half of those machines are broken down, and they have to then be fixed under pressure by an organization, Eskom, that isn't designed to be fixing 16,000 megawatts of machines at the same time. That organization is designed to fix a quarter or a fifth of that. So they can't fix them properly. They get them working as fast as possible. They put them back onto the grid, and they break down again shortly after that. And this is a spiraling, cascading, cumulative situation. The more load shedding there is, without putting extra other capacity, not these existing machines there are onto the grid, the more load shedding there will be. And independent experts, including myself, have been saying this over and over, like stuck records. But what's missing is any credible plan to get substantial generation onto the grid, apart from the existing coal-fired power stations, within any kind of short 6 month to 1 year period.
Right.
One thing has been done. They've made money available for diesel, but we've only got a limited number of open cycle gas turbines, and we're often running all of them. So we have to switch. We were switching them off before because of a shortage of diesel. So the single biggest achievement of this government so far to deal with load shedding over the past year has to be make taxpayers' money available to buy more diesel. Nothing else.
Let me ask you then, Hilton, what have they all been doing, government and the management at Eskom, from when De Ruyter and the others were appointed around 2019? And I reference that period because we were repeatedly told that progress was being made. Yes, it's a difficult and fluid situation, but work is being done. But this year, 2023, Eskom is going into the winter period at its weakest, technically, in terms of what it's able to do in electrifying the country.
Timbukile, I don't want to have differences with you, but certain people were saying things were being done. Other people, the independent scientific experts, including Andre De Ruyter, and I don't want to get into his personality in the book and whatever, but he and his executive management made it very clear that we had to get additional power onto the grid. Unfortunately, people completely unqualified to make technical analyses wade into the fray, and they still are. I saw a clip of Fikile Mbalula today saying that we'll get over load shedding by December. What does he know about stations or power systems. He doesn't say where his evidence comes from. He doesn't say where his analysis comes from. Beforehand, Gwede Mantashe took issue with statements, not at a personal level, but technical statements, saying we could get rid of load shedding by fixing the coal plants within 6 months. This is simply not so. So the reason we've got these problems is that we have people that essentially don't know what they're speaking about, having a huge influence on the strategy that we're following. And what we need to do, and a stuck record, once again, the quickest and fastest way to get substantial energy onto the grid, new capacity, is with wind and solar. It can't provide baseload, but it doesn't have to. Because if you've got load shedding the whole day somewhere in the country, it means you always don't have enough capacity, which means any capacity onto the grid is going to help you. And independent modeling, yes.
Hilton, I wanted to ask you about something you mentioned that's very important, the issue of the energy availability. It's dwindling. The target is 60%. Management seems to think they can somehow improve it, but in every update, we seem to be moving or slipping further away from the target of 60%. In fact, now we're going quite close to the lower 50s. How dangerous is that?
Well, I read that presentation, and there's some worrying stuff now creeping into Eskom presentations. They have a slide where they show that over a 3-year period, they increased the energy availability factor from where it is now to 70%. But they don't say how they're going to do that, because if you read the presentation, they say, well, extra staff are going to be crowdsourced in. They're going to improve management stability. They've been saying that all along. So I think that Eskom board now has become a kind of I don't want to say yes men because that's sexist, a yes person board, where people on that board are on there now if they won't be critical, if they won't use the facts. And now they're saying what the politicians want to hear. I don't see credible evidence being put on the table to back up how they're going to get to an energy availability factor of 70. And once again, stuck record. We've watched that energy availability factor steadily go down and down and down. And it's going to go further. I explained earlier on today why. Because all those machines are under massive pressure. We don't have time to... Eskom does not have the technical number of people and get spares on time. It's impossible to fix those machines as fast as they're breaking down. So it will continue dwindling. I'm predicting this. And unfortunately, the real people suffering are poor people, people losing their jobs, businesses closing down, sometimes people in hospitals dying, and we don't have a credible plan on the table. And there are different opinions in this country, but it seems that if you differ with your opinion with people like Gwede Mantashe or Fikile Mbalula, who get their knowledge from being, and I'm all for democracy, I'm all for a highly vibrant democratic state, but political parties, they blurred the line between the political party, the government, boards, and the executive management of all the SOEs, Eskom, especially, but Transnet. You saw what's happened to Telkom now. And so we have politicians trying to do things which they're not qualified to do. They're meant to appoint boards. Boards are then meant to appoint executive managers who appoint technical teams to run SOEs. But we're not having that. We're having the politicians going and interfering in the management of SOEs. And we can see where this is going. So I'm repeating myself, but it's very clear to a person like me. You know, I'm in my 60s now. I've spent my life in engineering, management, on boards of companies, in government. It's very clear to me what's going on. But unfortunately, it's not clear to many of the electorate who haven't had the privilege of working in those different positions. And we don't see a constructive engagement between the politicians making these incorrect technical statements and independent experts from the CSIR,
right,
from UCT. And what we have is we have the politicians trying to discredit the people through their affiliations, saying they are funded by nefarious organizations, a whole lot of conspiracies, we don't have a high-quality technical discussion.
Let me ask you then about the technical aspects, because there was a briefing held also by a political party earlier this week. More contentious was the suggestion for the return of people like Brian Molefe, Matsela Koko Park that, but the EFF also mentioned a return, for example, of some of the old engineers who would have worked within the energy space at Eskom in years gone by. If I recall correctly, there was a similar conversation being held last year about that happening. I don't know how well it's gone, but do you think that would help?
So there's a huge skill shortage, not just at Eskom, but in South Africa. But there is also a skill shortage in Eskom. Yes, this conversation, as far as I know, it's happened a few times. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, last year, trying to get people back in. As far as I know, there hasn't been much success with that. And you also have to remember, if you go and work inside Eskom, the Eskom inquiry, which happened in 2017, the Zondo Commission, one of the problems they pointed out is that instead of people being appointed in senior positions inside SOEs, because of open, transparent employment practices, they're appointed there because of their party political affiliations. It's called cadre deployment. So what happens is, even if you've got, and there are many, they're amazing people at Eskom. I'm amazed how they're keeping it going. But remember, you have some people keeping something going at a power station, whatever. The next thing, somebody waltzes in a senior position, and they're not appointed because of their technical knowledge, their experience, their management track record or whatever. And the next thing, they're telling people what to do, and they don't even understand how the job's done. And that's incredibly demoralizing. So I'm surprised, actually. I'm very proud of the engineering and technical people in South Africa that under these conditions, they've hung in there and stuck it out, waiting for the day where we get the unqualified and in many cases corrupt and law-breaking people out of our SOEs and start running them properly like professional organizations. And the first thing to do is to get the politicians to do what they do best, which is run political parties and win elections, and get their noses and their long fingers out of our SOEs.
Okay. Hilton Trollip, good to speak to you, energy expert tonight on News at Prime.